Hello guys and welcome to this part. Now we are going to create a sprint system and our first widget main screen. So let's begin. We're going to go to project settings, input, and add a new action mapping. Click the plus sign and name it sprint. We want to sprint with the shift button pressed. So I'm going to choose left shift. And that's it for the project settings input. All right. Now, first of all, I'm going to change the position of our player here just to have more space to run. I'm going to, let's say, minus 4,500. Let's put him down there. And let's do a quick build. So this error here that said that needs building disappears. Okay. It's when this is done, which it is, we can go to our character and start creating our sprint logic somewhere here. Okay, let's create some variables that we're going to need. First variable is going to be a boolean and is sprinting. Second variable is going to be called endurance and it's going to be a float. Next, we're going to have the max sprint time, and this is going to be a float as well. And we are going to need one more as delta time. Okay, these are the variables that we're going to need. We're going to create a system that while the shift button is held, our character is going to sprint but lose endurance during this time. And when the endurance has reached 0, the player will stop sprinting and the endurance is going to regenerate per second. So that's the system we're going to create. And of course display that in our main screen widget. All right, so let's go on is sprinting and create a category just to have it everything categorized nicely, and drag and drop on this category everything else except delta time, because delta time is going to be a generic helping variable. So let's move on. And now let's go to the actual logic. So let's create by right-clicking and create an event tick. I'm going to need this. The first thing it's going to do is setting the delta time to delta seconds. We might need this in other stuff as well. Let's right-click and create a custom event, which is going to be called endurance tick, which is going to be called every tick here. All right, and for now we can comment this tick event and let's put it up here. Okay, so every tick we're going to call this custom method. Okay, what are we going to do with this thing over here? Excuse me. We're going to see in a minute. First, let's right-click and look for sprint, the action event we created in the input. And now let's duplicate this macro. Rename it. Can we sprint? I think by now you have already understood why we do this. It's going to be much more easier to just add or remove conditions with the use of macros instead of going to our code and searching like, oh, it's here, oh no, it's there. It's much more easier. So Let's go to can we sprint? Of course, we don't need this. And we're going to create our conditions so we are able to sprint if we can. I'm going to use an AND here. And we want to be able to sprint if we are not already sprinting and if our endurance is more than 0. Okay, that's what we need. Not sprinting and endurance are positive. Okay, and that's it. So when we click our sprint input, which is shift for now, first we want to check if we can sprint. And if we can sprint, we want to set our sprinting to true because we're sprinting, and then get our character movement. I do this by holding Control and dragging, okay? And now from here, set our max walk speed to 800. And that's it. When we click shift, we want to check if we can sprint and then set sprinting and increase our movement speed, which, if you remember correctly, the default is 400, so we actually double this. If we want to change this, we can do it later. When we release shift, we want to create a branch and check if we are sprinting. If we are not sprinting, then nothing should happen. But if we do sprint, then we want to change this to false and change our speed back to 400. All right. And now I'm going to drag from here and create a custom event and call it stop sprint. Okay. And this is going to be called when we want manually to force our character to stop sprinting. Okay. Perfect. Now let's go back to this endurance tick, which is actually the whole logic for increasing and decreasing our endurance when we have to. Okay, so first of all, we have to set our endurance, and from here we're going to find how we're going to set our endurance. But before I do this, after we set our endurance, we want to check if our endurance is 0 or even below that. Because if it is, it means that we have to stop sprinting. How can we do that? Pretty easily, and that's why we created the stop sprint function, event, which is going to call this thing over here and prevent us from sprinting. Okay, so now let's find out how we're going to find this endurance. Okay, first things first, let's clamp it. That means we're going to set the value, a value between 0 and 100. And that's a clamp. Okay, what value should we clamp? Here we need a select float. We're going to select a float to clamp and set the endurance. How do we select? Easy. We're going to select depending on if we're sprinting or not, because if we're sprinting, we want to decrease endurance, but if we don't sprint, we want to increase endurance. So in the first step here, if actually we are sprinting, we want to decrease our endurance. So let's get our endurance and let's subtract, and let's multiply here. Actually, let me explain a thing. this is going here. So we're going to get our endurance and decrease him. How? And how much? We're going to do this. I'm going to divide 100 by our max sprint time, which is a variable that holds the maximum sprint time if I have 100 endurance. Okay? So let's compile, and let's say we want to be able to sprint for 4 seconds. All right. And now I'm going to multiply this by our delta time. And that's what is going to get in here. So this is how we're going to decrease the rate. We're going to decrease it so it lasts for maximum of 4 seconds. Okay? All right. So I'm going to copy this and paste it and say some things. In the B here, it means that we don't sprint. We're not sprinting currently, so we don't want to decrease, but we want to increase the endurance by something like that. So if I leave it as it is, endurance is going to drop exactly the same way it's going to regenerate. But I want it to regenerate a bit faster. So I'm going to add a pin here and multiply it by 1.5. Feel free to change this value. I think 1.5 times faster is okay. So let's get all of this and Alt F to format the graph and just fix this. I can select all this and press Q to straighten everything. Okay, let's comment this. This is going to be sprint logic here. All right, let me put this here, this here. All right, so sprint logic is ready. That means that if I click play, as you can see, I'm going like this. If I press shift, I suddenly start running when our endurance is done. Okay, now I'm going slower. All right, but our player has no idea how much our endurance is, and that's why we're going to create a new widget and display the value of endurance to our player. Okay, first of all, let's save everything, and then let's go to content, right click, create a new folder, which is going to be named widgets. Open this up, right click, user interface, and create a new widget blueprint, which is going to be called main screen, and open this up. Okay, perfect. All right, first of all, let's go to blueprints, open our game mode, open full blueprint editor, and now I'm going to delete event tick. Let me create something here. I'm going to get player controller and input mode. Set input mode to game only. For now, at least. Maybe we change this later, but for now, we need this. Okay, close the game mode. We're done. And let's work a bit on our main screen. All right, first of all, delete the canvas panel and set for a scroll box. Sorry, a scale box. Put a scale box in here. Scale box is going to be needed here, so everything is scaled perfectly on every possible screen out there, no matter what these numbers are. Okay, so we need a scale box and now a canvas panel attached to our scale box. And So now, to be able to work on this canvas panel without problems, I'm going to create an image inside our canvas panel. Let me click on here and fill horizontally and vertically. Click our image, change the anchor to full screen, change everything here to 0, click size to content, and in brass, change the size of our image to, let's say, to this resolution. So now our screen is stretched for this resolution. If we have anything smaller or even larger, it's going to scale perfectly to match the size of our screen size. So, but we don't want to see this image. So first of all, we're going to set the opacity to 0 so that disappeared, and visibility to hit non-hit testable. Okay, so our clicks surpass this. And just to be sure, set the Z order to -1. Perfect. We don't need this as variable. Rename this to, let's say, stretch image. All right. And click this icon here so we can't accidentally move this. Okay? All right, perfect. Now, let's go to our test map here, blueprints, my head, open full blueprint editor, and let's show our screen when the game begins. So, first of all, let's get player character. And before I do that, I'm going back to my main screen, go to graph, delete all this stuff, and just create one variable for now. I'm going to name this character, and the type is going to be of my character. And click editable and expose on spawn, because I want to set this variable when I create this widget. Compile it and save it. Let's go back to our head. Then I want to get player controller. I'm going to need these two nodes. And now drag from here and say create widget. The class is going to be main class. And now, can you see here? We can set our character when we create this widget. So let's get our character and cast it to my character. And now I can plug in this to this. And the owning player is the player controller, excuse me. Now I'm going to right click and promote this to a variable. I'm going to name it main screen. And after that, I'm going to add this to the viewport. Perfect. Let me comment this. Shows the main screen on game start. Okay. This is ready. All right. Let's compile and save. Of course, if we hit play, nothing actually changes. All right. Let's go to our main, because our main screen is empty. That's why. Let's go to our main screen and let's start working on this. First of all, we want to add a progress bar, which will be the way of showing our endurance to the player. So search for bar. We need a progress bar. Let's rename it. I'm going to name it sprint bar. I'm going to anchor it bottom center, and the position is going to be -400 as it is, -350. The size is going to be 70 on X and 300 on Y. Okay, and this is going to be our bar. Let's put here 0.5 just to see that this is going from left to right. Okay, that's not something we like. Let's change this to bottom to top. So the bar is going to go like this. Okay. And now let's click on bind and create a binding. We're going to create a binding for this progress bar. So it automatically finds what the percentage should be in order to have the right display on our screen about our endurance. And I'm going to do something else as well in here. I'm going to set the percentage of our bar and set the opacity. So when we actually sprint, the opacity is going to be greater. So the player has the impact of, oh, okay, now I'm sprinting, or no, I'm not sprinting. So let's rename this. I'm going to rename this to sprint get sprint percent and opacity. So this function here should have a sequence because I'm going to do two stuff. So first of all, I'm going to get our character, which is set when we created the widget, if you remember correctly. Get the is sprinting variable. And now from here, I'm going to get our sprint bar and set render opacity and plug this here. So select a float, and if we are sprinting, we're going to select a float depending on if we're sprinting or not. So if we are sprinting, we want our bar to be fully opaque, so at 1. But if we're not, let's say 0.2. Let's select this and Alt F to format our graph. And that's the first thing it's going to do every tick. It's going to find out if we're sprinting or not and set the render opacity. Now, after that, we need to find the percentage to set our bar. How are we going to do this? You're going to get our character, get the endurance, and divide it by 100. And plug the result in here. Okay? And this is done. If we compile and save now and play, we are going to see that now we have this bar over there which is filling, and I don't like this. I'm going to endurance and set it already to 100, so it's fine. All right, as you can see now the bar is filled. If I press sprint, my endurance is going down, all right, and going up again. If I start walking and press shift, I'm going to run. If I leave it, it's going to go back up and something like that. 4 seconds maximum, and when it's done, sprint stops and back again. Maybe 3 seconds is a bit more. We can change this to something like 3 seconds, and I think the bar is filling too fast, so 1 point, let's say 2 here, or 1.25. If I press play now, okay, the bar goes down pretty much faster and up again. Of course, I can jump, I can go backwards if I like, okay, like this, or left or right. Everything we have created works fine, but now we can sprint as well. All right, and that's it. That's it for this part. Thank you for watching. As always, I hope you liked the video. Subscribe, ask anything you like in comments, and see you next time. Thank you for watching.